When you think of the Sonic franchise, certain core aspects of the experience usually come to mind, namely high-speed platforming action and those shiny golden rings, of course. Over the years, however, many of its spin-offs tossed these elements aside, and few took a more radical approach to this than Sonic Labyrinth. This game is something of a unique beast. It was released near the end of the Game Gear's life cycle in 1995, and it made its way to Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, Mega Collection Plus, and the 3DS Virtual Console in the decades that followed. It wasn't as well received as some of its other 8-bit brethren, and a slew of bad press over the years has given it a fairly negative reputation, one it actually kind of deserves. Instead of running around, scooping up rings, and bopping on badniks like you'd expect, Sonic Labyrinth challenges you to something else entirely. Players must navigate a series of isometric maze-like levels, collect 3 keys, and bring them to the goal before time runs out. The catch here is that, according to the story, Dr. Eggman has replaced Sonic's ordinary running shoes with something called slowdown boots. This footwear takes away Sonic's ability to run, jump, and more or less do anything that would make this game even kind of enjoyable. So right off the bat, this design choice presents a few glaring issues. The slow movement speed makes the control feel stiff and restrictive, like you're fighting with the game instead of playing it. When a game's control is bad, it's hard to explain purely through video, but trust me, it really is as sluggish as it looks. Thankfully, you can spin dash, but in a somewhat ironic twist, it's kind of way too fast sometimes. You'll often end up just flying all over the place and bouncing off everything and maybe running into a hazard you couldn't see until it was too late. It's difficult to control until you get the hang of it, and even then, it's not exactly an ideal way to move around. If anything, it makes you wish you could just run at that speed instead. There's really no satisfying way to control this game, and that hurts the overall experience right from the get-go. Perhaps the shortcomings in the control would be more forgivable if the game's design wasn't so inaccessible. Like I said before, every stage is presented as something of a maze where Sonic needs to explore with no direction or guidance in order to complete his objectives. There's no map, there's no arrows, there's just you and those stupid slowdown boots. Now there's nothing wrong with this in theory, not every game needs to hold your hand and guide you along from point A to point B, but Sonic Labyrinth makes navigation a bit too aggravating. You can't see very much of the level at once, so sometimes it's pretty tough to figure out where you are and what's around you. Unless you have the levels memorized, it's really easy to get lost, and really hard to keep track of where everything is. Again, this isn't necessarily a bad thing. I mean, if your game has Labyrinth in the title, I'd expect to get lost a few times. The problem lies within whether this blind exploration feels enjoyable and rewarding, or just tedious. And more often than not, Sonic Labyrinth falls squarely into the latter category. The stilted level design doesn't help matters much either. Some of it is repetitive, where similar chunks of level are used repeatedly and often right next to each other, and some of it just makes no sense at all. Like that. That bit right there. Plus, if that wasn't enough, the difficulty tends to spike randomly. Some of the last levels in the game are among the easiest, and some of the early levels are among the hardest. It's a strange and uneven experience that's actually a bit counterintuitive in that it doesn't provide you with that smooth, fair learning curve and challenge level you'd normally expect. It's a shame, too, because the game looks and sounds pretty good. The music is upbeat and energetic, if a bit repetitive, and the graphics are vibrant and colorful. So the game lures you in with its attractive presentation, but it's all less inspired than it appears to be. Everything just kind of starts blending together, especially in the later levels. The environments aren't very detailed to begin with, so aside from a palette swap, not much changes from one world to the next. It's the same checkerboard floor, the same cookie-cutter enemies, and the same identical-looking stretches of level over and over and over again. I mean, I understand that it's an 8-bit system and there can't be too much graphical variety just because of the hardware limitations, but games like Sonic Chaos and Sonic Triple Trouble were able to do it. Why not here? So once you get all these keys and make it through the main levels, you reach a boss fight, and these present a different kind of problem. They're actually way too easy. You start each fight by flying down a ramp where all of a sudden, there's rings everywhere. This gives you a chance to get some extra lives, but you're moving too fast to consistently do this unless, again, you have their patterns memorized. The actual fights aren't very exciting by comparison. They basically boil down to staying in spin dash as much as possible, and this is where the traditional Sonic design kicks in. One hit drops all your rings, and a second hit kills you. You can approach these fights with strategy and beat them without much effort, but you're often better off just throwing yourself into everything, because unfortunately, that can be just as effective. It's not very satisfying. It's even a little bit frustrating. And that's how I describe this game as a whole. It's just frustrating. You want to move fast. You want to have some sense of where you're going. You want to have smooth, responsive controls. You want to have some degree of fair challenge and a motivation to keep playing. And therein lies the problem. Sonic Labyrinth offers next to none of this at any stage of the experience. The core gameplay is functional and technically sound in that I didn't encounter any major bugs during my playthrough, but that fact is too easily overshadowed by its glaring and persistent design flaws. It really feels like the developers moved the Sonic series too far out of its comfort zone, and the final product paid a heavy price. It's kinda like Hotel Mario or Castlevania 64. If you stray too far from what makes your franchise great, bad things tend to happen. So when you put it all together, Sonic Labyrinth disappoints with 2.5 stars out of 5. It's a mediocre action puzzle hybrid with clunky controls and frustrating design. There may be new and more accessible ways to play it, but I'd steer clear if I were you. Thanks so much for watching. This was our first video retro review, and I'm still kinda ironing the kinks out, but there should be more in the future, so stay tuned for that. For more reviews, news, and information on all things Sega, keep it here, TSSZnews.com.